From pickup artist extraordinaire Roosh V to advocate for chastity. This is a surprising show. You're going to love this conversation with Roosh V, who's here to unspool him what happened to him and his change of heart about what the relationship between men and women is supposed to be, what the role of sex is supposed to be in light of the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is the Patrick Coffin Show. Hit that subscribe thing. I think the technical term is thingy, the notification bell. Don't search for the show. Let it come to you. This episode brought to you by MyPillow.com. I've interviewed the founder, former crack addict CEO Mike Lindell twice on this show. Big fan of MyPillow.com. If you use the coupon code Patrick, you get buy one, get one free. You cannot build a culture until you're rested. There's a reason why God included the Sabbath into the whole picture. We need to rest. We need leisure. Leisure is the basis of culture. So go to MyPillow.com. My name, Patrick, gets you a sweet Patrick Coffin Show discount. If you're sitting there with a pen, it's 1-800-794-9652. 800-794-9652. And there's also a special deal on Mike's book called What Are the Odds? Coming up, Roosh V on the Patrick Coffin Show. Don't go away. As promised, Valizadeh is a former pickup artist guru. He's written over a dozen books. He was quite the thing in the man's movement, especially online. And then a series of circuitous, often difficult things led him to embrace chastity and the Christian faith of his youth. Roosh V, honored to have you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Patrick, for having me on.
We were talking off the air, Roosh, about how some people in this world, they become prominent or infamous because they're unpopular. They have ideas or they do something that makes them controversial. And in researching our conversation today, it occurred to me that almost everything written about you is written about you by your enemies. So it's I know that you have other things in your life, but maybe we can start with how you got involved in the activities that made you famous or infamous, going to other countries, writing basically sex guides, how to help incels and insecure men become more confident with women, and ultimately make it easier and more effective to fornicate with them. How did all this start back in the day?
So I was a late bloomer. I didn't really grow up until I was around 17, 18. So in high school and college, I had the lust. I really wanted to be with a woman, but I didn't have the confidence or the look or the skills to get with them. So throughout high school and college, I was just trying to figure it out. How can I enter a sexual relationship with a woman? I followed some bad advice that you have to be friends with the woman first, and that didn't work out. I would just remain friends. Mm-hmm. So then towards the end of college, I found this pickup artist community online that made it seem like with just some social skills, some lines, and some other behavioral changes, you can meet any girl that you want and pick her up. And I dived into that because I had this pent up lust for so many years, and I felt like every other guy was getting sex except for me. So I had to make up for lost time. Mm-hmm. And after I graduated from college, this is when I had a full-time job. I became a microbiologist. But the rest of my time was spent learning how to meet girls in bars or coffee shops. And I put a lot of energy, I would say all of it, into doing that. And I had a blog at the time. I started to write stories about me going to a Washington, D.C. club to meet this girl or that. And I built an audience from that. And the audience got big enough where I could write a pickup book and sell it directly to them. I wrote my first pickup book. It was in 2007 called Bang.
Yeah,
and
subtle.
It did pretty well.
Bang did well.
Yeah, it did
huh?
well. I just, sex sells, right? So I taught men how to do what I was doing. And one skill I have is I can explain things. I can break things down. So my audience grew and grew and grew. And now what I was teaching was men how to get sex from in their own terms, on their own terms, and as opposed to this feminist movement at the same time that was growing, this sex positivity and female empowerment. So I was saying, well, yeah, girls can do that, but we are going to get a woman attracted to us and get her into bed, the woman that we want, instead of waiting for a feminist to choose us out of the crowd. Mm-hmm. And that is what started to get me into trouble with the media, who they wrote hundreds of articles saying I was a sexist, misogynist. When that didn't shut me down, then they started to say that I was a pro-rape advocate, right, based on a satirical article that I wrote. So they really came at me hard, and they attacked me, but at the same time they attacked the point of view that men should be able to go out there and get sex like a woman can. But really what the ideology of that time is that it's for the women to get who they want. It's not for the men to. So that's how I think I started to come at odds with the media establishment, just by trying to empower men.
Almost an anti-feminism effort.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah, and the thing is, at the time I was doing it, I believed that I was doing the right thing, that men needed to explore their sexual options. They needed to sow their royal oats. So I believed I was something of a hero, that I was doing important work for men worldwide. Right. And I was so sure of it that I continued to write book after book after book on how to fornicate. How not only to fornicate in the United States, but how to do it in foreign countries, how to travel and fornicate.
And how to use their cultural mores basically against them.
How to adapt, how to get a rental apartment in the nightlife area so that you go on dates and can bring her back to your pad and so on. So I really dedicated, this was now after, when my first book Bang was doing well, I didn't have to go continue working as a microbiologist. So I quit that job, and to dedicate myself full time, not only to pursuing sex, but to writing about it, to leading men, tens of thousands of men, to do the same thing as me.
Were you worried that your cover was going to be blown? Because you're living this double life as a microbiologist by day and pickup artist guru by night. Did you think that your cover was going to be blown?
Well, I didn't start getting the media attention until after I already quit.
Oh, I see.
So I didn't have to worry about that. But I would meet girls, and I didn't want them to Google me. So what I would do, the trick I would do, I would say my name is Roosh, but I would spell it in a different way. So I would spell it Roush instead of Roosh. So they wouldn't Google me and find out that the man that they were considering going to bed with kind of does this as a full-time job.
And will kiss and tell publicly, at least in a book, right? Roosh, how old were you when you first were exposed to pornography?
I was a bit late in the game. Well, I guess now it is. I was around 17 or 16. I would say if you count magazines as porn, it was probably earlier, around 14 or 15. But the hardcore pornography wasn't until I was around 16 plus.
And most people that I've interviewed who come from like a heavy duty pornography addiction background, they all say the same thing. They remember their first hit of that dopamine drug. Do you remember that really kind of being entangled by it or entranced by your first exposure? Does that question even make sense?
Honestly, with me, during my younger years, I did view porn, but not as much as a lot of other men I know. It wasn't a daily thing. I could regulate it. For me, I didn't get the satisfaction from the porn. For me, I got the satisfaction from the bodily act. So porn was there, but compared to men I talked to, I didn't have that problem that a lot of other men, like me, I could say not watch porn. I could only watch it once or twice every week or even less. So it was, I mean, plus I was coming up when the internet was really slow too. So
Right.
I only had access to the images. Not until I was already in my 20s did the video porn start.
Mm-hmm. For folks who've never heard the concept of game, do you know who coined it, and what is game for newcomers?
No, I'm not sure who coined game, but game is just a set of social tools that you would use to maximize your chance of building attraction with a woman and then to get her into bed for a casual sex act. So it started with, say, how to look and then where to go. And then if there's a woman in the room, what to say to her, how to get a conversation going, how to get her phone number, the best way to ask her out on a date. So it's really just a optimization of the natural process where you would meet someone, but you would do it in a deliberate sense, kind of manufacture rapport, manufacture connection, even though maybe it wasn't there. So you were something like an actor, like a professional actor, where I have an idea what she wants because she's in this club at this bar, she's drinking alcohol, she's looking for fun. She wouldn't be here otherwise. So how can I give her the fun that she wants and then me get what I want, which is the sex act?
And it didn't bother you that you were also being exploited? That was part of the game. An acceptable criteria is that, yeah, she's using me, I'm using her.
Early on, no, I didn't get that. But, a lot of times when I really started off, I just wanted one girlfriend. I really, like a lot of guys who get into the game, they just want a girlfriend. They want one girl to love, one girl to be with. But who would have known that if you use game to pick up girls in bars and clubs, you don't get that girlfriend type. So what was happening is I was getting girls into bed and thinking, wow, this is nice. I hope I can see her again. But they would flake, disappear. You wouldn't be their plan A. Maybe you would be their plan B. So what happened was I couldn't get the girlfriend that I wanted. And then my goal changed. No, I didn't want a girlfriend. I wanted to be a player. I wanted to be a Don Juan. I wanted to sleep around. So I kind of changed my goal so I can preserve my pride when it was clear that girls wanted to use me. But it took me a while to see that because no man wants to admit, God, I'm getting used.
Yeah,
I'm giving way more to them than they're getting from me. So I didn't allow myself to see that until the later years.
Was that chip replacement, the acceptance or the realization that you were also being used as you were, being a pickup artist and writing about your experiences and providing advice? Was that the beginning of the pills? Because you've talked about these 4 steps, the 4 pills that you ingested that led you into the presence of God and the teaching of the gospel. Was that part of it? That this is, hey, wait a second. I'm seeing women as elaborate masturbation devices, and they're also getting something out of me. They don't want to be here next Tuesday. Was that part of the beginning of the dissatisfaction, in other words?
So it started when I could no longer feel the pleasure highs that I could when I first started. So it was probably until my early 30s. I'm 40 now. My early 30s where I started, I would bring a girl to bed and sleep with her, but I didn't get that same high as before. And then when that high came down, my mind was a little bit clearer. I mean, it wasn't clear, but a little bit more where I could say, wait, what am I getting out of this? Why am I doing this? But now my entire life was entwined into it. I was putting out sex books. My income was totally dependent on it. All the compliments, all the online accolades I was getting was dependent on me going out and picking up this girl and bringing her back home. So even though I could see it, something was going on, I was adapting to the pleasure. I couldn't quit quite yet because everything else was attached to it. But once I started to see that, then, it took some more time where I could say, I'm not getting really anything out of this. I don't know what I'm doing. But I wasn't raised in the church. I was baptized in the Armenian Orthodox Church when I was 9, but I wasn't catechized. I didn't, learn the gospel even. The first time I read the Gospels, I think I was 36, but mostly from an intellectual standpoint to get the wisdom out of it.
Sure.
So I didn't have anything to fall back on. So I had to invent my own ways of getting through this. Maybe I have to try this, or maybe I have to try that. I did start to think, okay, why don't you go back to that first goal you had, which was to get a girlfriend? So I tried that.
Hey, this is Patrick Coffin. If you like what you see and hear, and you want to see and hear more, consider joining Coffin Nation as a full member. Nipsey, my fedora. That's Coffin Nation, the world's largest online community of culture builders. See you on the inside.
But any girl you get through PickUp, any girl you get through being an actor, well, she's going to be an actress too. You really, whatever spiritual state you're in, you're going to attract your mirror reflection. So I got a girl who was addicted to pleasures of the world, who wanted to have fun too. And needless to say, but trying to constrain this specific girl that I met into, say, a housewife was a difficult thing. So it didn't work out. And then what? What do you do then? So then that's when you come to a crossroads, and important choices happen after that.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite guests after this is like my 171st show on my own, is Dr. Judith Reisman. She's the researcher. E. Michael Jones knows her. She was the first one to blow the lid off of Alfred Kinsey as a sex criminal. The Kinsey sex reports in 1948, 1953. And in talking with Dr. Reisman, she gave me some bio background on Hugh Hefner. And Hefner's first wife cheated on him when he was away in World War II. And so a plausible theory is that the entire Playboy empire is an act of revenge porn. And I've noticed this just, I don't belong to any like manosphere forums or anything, but in researching this conversation, and just generally because I'm interested in men's issues and forming strong Catholic Christian men, I notice a couple commonalities. Forget the porn for a moment. One commonality is that a lot of men who want to learn game and grow in confidence have been heartbroken by a woman. They've been betrayed or wounded by a woman they really cared about. And the second commonality is being a child of divorce. Does this cohere? Is this something that you found as well?
My parents got divorced when I was 8. It was a difficult divorce. It was a lot of fighting and yelling. Mm-hmm. After that happened, I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. My dad is the stoic type, very quiet. He doesn't express himself. My mom was very angry at him at the time, so I couldn't show. I had to be on her side, right? So I didn't. So this was very difficult, and I definitely changed after that. I became more of an introvert. I didn't share things because I didn't have anyone. Even I was 8 or 9, I didn't have anyone to talk to. I kind of wanted to hide. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you can tell me maybe did that have a strong effect on why I didn't pursue a normal relationship? Probably. That combined with the fact that I just had a lot of lust. I just craved it, and once I got a taste of it, like a drug addict, I wanted more and more and more. Then you threw pride on top of that, where people are complimenting me on what a stud I am, and that was game over. That was 18 years of my life from 21 to 39 years of age, just gone, just gone. And again, like I talked about earlier, when you don't have faith to come back on, you don't know what to do.
Right.
So that's what I faced.
You're one of the posts you have, I'll just give your website as well, rooshv.com. On rooshv.com, 8 personal defects that allowed me to worship fornication for 18 years. I was just wondering how the effects of, now I know that you're the child of divorce, a lot of, especially men who've either been or felt abandoned. It's not about the objective truth. It's about how the child perceives it. If the dad is not is sort of present but not really salient, or has abandoned the family, then you live your life without a GPS. It's like you're mapless. You're on a journey, but you're not sure where it's going to. You know what the guideposts are. So you're very frank about these defects that angled you toward worshiping the creation, kind of like a latter-day St. Augustine. Now, this is the kind of conversation that most men don't have with each other. This last week's show was on the crisis of male friendships, but you're very, very candid about your own weaknesses and your own proclivities rather to, in this case, sexual sin. Was there one defect that was sort of that gnawed at you the worst, or the thing that inclined you to want to fornicate constantly? Was there like a sort of a taproot of all of it?
I think I wanted just to feel the connection, to feel the intimacy. Because now I look back, if you take on the kind of life that I did, the physical pleasure part of it is very short, it's very small. I mean, you're talking to, say, a woman till you get her in bed for hours and hours for a sex act that's pretty short, you know. I don't want to say it's that short, but it's short, let's say.
No, it's not a good return on investment time-wise.
Sure. And so I cannot justify it just based on the orgasm, you know, just on the humping aspect. So it had to be something else, some kind of connection that I sought, some kind of love. I think if you look back, it was probably some kind of searching for love, that the love of a woman who I would meet in a bar would somehow save me, would somehow make life better, would somehow take away all my other problems. And just, you know, just to live life is difficult. And I guess I had the idea that a woman was my savior. You know, I made a false god out of her and did everything possible to come closer to her. You know, I left the Washington, D.C. area to move abroad to Eastern Europe, where the babes liked me more. So I forsake everything. I gave up everything, you know, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was giving up my soul at the same time. And I thought that, and now, you know, once I turn to God and his grace enters me, I can't express how dumb I feel, how much of a fool I feel, that I was so sure that I was on the right path. Sure enough, that I eagerly told many other men to do the same thing as me, live like me. I know what I'm doing. Now I look back and what an idiot I was. I don't even recognize who that idiot was. So this is when I meet young men and they, you know, believe in one of Satan's lies, that moderation is key. You know, just a little bit of sin is good. You know, I tell him
be balanced that after all.
Exactly. Yeah. So I tell him that you're going to change your mind. What you believe is so sure today, you're going to change it. And if God does enter your life, you're going to be embarrassed. You know, and me, I lived life in such a public way. All that work. I mean, I unpublished a lot of my books, a lot of the articles, but it's still out there. And, you know, so it's still out there. And it's kind of a very humbling thing that you did something stupid for so long. Everyone knows about it. So in some ways that has helped me come closer to God, because pride distances you from him. So I guess that's what I had to go through. You know, I had to go through this public embarrassment, this public conversion.
Yep. And
just to speak candidly, this is what happened to me.
One of my favorite books is written by Joseph Pierce. It's called The Unmasking of Oscar Wilde. It's a biography of Oscar Wilde's spiritual journey. And when he was in jail, I'm not likening you to Oscar Wilde, but when he was in jail, he wrote the following lines about his suffering. It's only through a broken heart. No. How but through a broken heart can the Lord Christ enter in? For some of us, you know, the call to humility falls on deaf ears until there's a moment of humiliation, and then all things kind of click together, and then you're open to grace. Because if you're living by the granddaddy sin of pride, then you're kind of the captain. You're the director. You're the arbiter. You're not certainly not a son or a servant. Roosh, you talk about the 4 steps to God. And the first one is the blue pill. I think a lot of young men who grew up anywhere from the 60s to the 80s or 90s, as E. Michael Jones says, you're in a social experiment you didn't even know was going on, where feminism is the default setting. And the birth control pill is a wonderful blessing. To argue against the pill is like arguing against, suntan lotion in July in the beach. But all this is sort of an inverted reality. Tell us about the blue pill.
So I would say that the blue pill is by default the ideology that they want you to believe to be a good, compliant slave. That by default, again, puts the woman if you're a man at the center. She's the false god. I mean, you can have any false god during the blue pill stage, but just not God. Or even they take Jesus Christ and make him into someone who loves gay pride or something, So really, it's about inverting everything. They invert everything, the natural order, the moral order. The funny thing is, I thought I transcended the blue pill. I was in the second pill, the red pill. This is where you know the truth. And as a man, you embrace your masculinity. Yeah. But women were still my false god. I didn't change that. Only thing I changed is that I now have the skill to get closer to them, to get some pleasure out of them. But where was the love? There was none. There was zero. So I think the red pill for a lot of men feels good because, okay, now I'm going to the gym. I'm more confident. I get more dates, more sex. But do you think Satan cares about that? Do you think he's bothered by you being better looking and getting girls? No, he wants that because that's going to keep you away from God. So unfortunately, I had to throw the red pill out too, because really, yeah, it's a little bit better than the blue pill in the sense there is more truth in your life, but not much more. There's just a little bit more. So a lot of men delude themselves and think, oh, I'm red pill. This is the last pill. Right. I figured it out. I'm getting sex. I'm some kind of king. But as I learned, I was in the red pill for a long time, but that's a dead end too.
And that the red pill mentality was really the wheelhouse of your forums, right? And the Return to Kings and the whole movement that you started. Men kind of stuck in this extended adolescence of thinking that the red pill is true home. Am I overplaying the card?
No, it's about, you got it all figured out. Just go to the gym, eat right, travel to this country to sleep with these girls, get some kind of, even some of it spread into how to make money on the internet, how to be location independent. So it's really just a self-improvement scheme. Yeah, you'll get more. So it was about extracting as many material rewards from the world. So how do you, it's an advanced secular lifestyle where you can cash in on the freedoms that you have to travel, to sleep with girls, to take drinks in the bar. So it's, how to go to the gym, how to get more lustful looks from the women. So it was basically how to maximize your secular lifestyle, but you're still in the same paradigm. You're still in the seen world, the secular world.
Mm-hmm. And the women you'll get through game are actually broken women. They're fallen in their own mode, and so it's a promise that can never be kept, right? The girl that you get in bed because you're a pickup artist extraordinaire is the same girl who doesn't really want to see you next Tuesday or meet you or have you meet their parents.
She is as broken as you. So if the more broken you are, the more broken she is. I thought that meeting a woman was a mathematical game. So using my skill and confidence, if I talk to 1,000 women all over the world, one of them has to be good. Mm-hmm. But I've talked to more than 1,000, and I wasn't even close to marriage, close to what, a Christian couple would define as love. Not even close. In fact, the more women I talked to, the further away I was. So my mathematical game was a lie. It was just a lie, because really the type of woman that would want to be with a man who popped out of nowhere to fake this confidence, fake this masculinity, is the type that's faking herself.
Right. Then the high times and the pleasures and the excitement of the red pill eventually gives way to ingesting the black pill, when all the harshness and all the reality becomes impossible to deny. How did your black pill taking transpire?
So in a logical way, I saw the limits of chasing pleasure and sex. I could tell you, all right, Pat, even when I was still doing it, all right, Patrick, game, there has to be some kind of balance to it, in the sense that you're going to get tired of it. You're not going to get the same pleasure highs as before. But I wouldn't have an alternative for you. I didn't know what else to do. And then an event that happened to me was my kid's sister, 7 years younger than me. She got diagnosed with breast cancer in 2015. Mm-hmm. And, I believed that, cancer treatment is very advanced. We're going to beat it. And her doctors, her oncologists were very optimistic. I took a break from sex in Europe to come to the U.S. to help her, take her to the doctor. And, she went through the chemotherapy, the surgery, the radiation, and she was in remission. I went back to Europe to resume my lifestyle of fun because the doctors healed her. But unfortunately, in 2018, early 2018, the cancer came back, and she died in early 2018. Mm-hmm. And after that, it was like the curtain had been removed from what I could see. And I can see how pointless the lifestyle I had been leading was, but I didn't know exactly why. I just thought it's just pointless. There is no meaning to this. Everything that I decided to do on my own was a dead end. But what was the alternative? I didn't know. So for months and months, I'm, in this despondency, despair. There's no meaning to life. It's all pointless. Mm-hmm. And we're all just going to die. And then 11 months after my sister died, a little over 1 year ago, I felt this urge to pray. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, I've never properly prayed in my life, and I didn't know how to pray, but I grappled with this urge for about a month. And then I actually had to Google how to pray. So I remember the first time I prayed, I was just crying. Just tears. I was reading the Nicene Creed. I didn't even know what it meant, but I was just crying. Yeah. And then I remember the next day, and also when my sister died, I was drinking more and things like that. Mm-hmm. The next day, I felt like a burden had been lifted. And I think that was the first day I realized I didn't have to go it on my own anymore. I didn't have to figure it out. God already figured it out for me. And that was, I would say, the beginning of my faith, and it's been getting stronger every day.
Roosh, did you think of the Christian faith in any of its forms as your effort to kind of reach up and out to God, as opposed to, well, no, God came to us. God sent his son, Jesus Christ, the Logos made flesh. We don't have to become better to earn his love, because we can't. It's mercy, because it's not justice, and thank God we don't get justice. In other words, I think
I do understand.
Yeah, good.
I would say God came to me when I was still in an exceedingly sinful state. Mm-hmm. I didn't make much effort to go to improve. So I kind of stopped a lot of sin, mostly because I was exhausted. Yeah. Not because I thought it was bad. At that time, God had not revealed to me the sins that I was doing. So I didn't really know what sin was. Even at the peak, when I was sleeping with a lot of girls and writing these pornographic stories about them, I could look in the mirror and see a good person. I never saw a bad person. Now I do. Now I see how bad I was. But at the time, at my worst, I never saw that. So I think, it was a gift. The faith from God was a gift. Now, I was humbled enough at that point when my sister died. I really started to say I didn't have the answers. I think at that point, God knew that I was ready. When I no longer believed in my own schemes, my own ideas, my own false ideologies. I no longer believe that a woman could save me through a sexual experience. So I think once that happened, then God, he tapped on the door, and I just had to open it.
I know a lot more about the Russian Orthodox Church, and as a Catholic, that too. So I'm asking out of ignorance as far as the role of the Blessed Virgin Mary in the traditions of the Armenian Orthodox Church. Is there a kind of a closeness with the Mother of God taught?
Yeah, I pray to her every day. She has a very important role. I mean, from what I know of the Catholics, you place a more important role with her, but we're not that far behind you. Actually, the Catholics and the Orthodox, from the outside in, we're very, very different. But I get along with Catholics very well, which kind of hints to me that our faith is not that different. But when you talk about the Protestants now, it's a big, big difference. It's like a chasm, right?
Yeah, it is.
So, I mean, it's taken me a while to warm up to praying to the Blessed Mother. At first, I was like, why do we need to pray to her? Can't we just pray only to God? But then when you learn of her role as an intercessor, and she plays an important role, and her role in bringing Christ to us, then you start to understand why it's important to pray to her as well.
For Catholics, especially Catholics in recovery or Catholics who've had a kind of a St. Augustine sex-soaked background, the Blessed Virgin Mary is also a tremendous source of healing, because so many men fall for this false feminine. And Mary is the true feminine. She's the epitome of true femininity, which is not passivity. Mary was a very strong woman, and it would take a strong woman to give the word flesh. Is there do you guys get shriven? Do you have confession with your priests?
We do. Each Orthodox church is different. So I'm in the technical Oriental Orthodox branch, where the Armenians and the Egyptians are.
Okay.
And we have a public confession that we do before the entire church, but we can also do a private confession too.
Mm-hmm. That sense of accountability is important, to say it out loud and to hear the words, I absolve you. I mean, those are incredibly beautiful words that, thanks to the priesthood, we don't have to guess about it. We can actually hear it by Christ's grace. So you're doing a lot of reading now of different sources?
Yeah, I'm reading, I've read a lot of books, of course, the Bible every day, but I'm reading, I'm actually reading a book on C.S. Lewis now, a biography of him. Mm-hmm. I focus mostly on the Orthodox books, but I watch a lot of Catholic videos too. So I really, it's not that often. And when I was early in my walk, I didn't know what Orthodox doctrine really was. Mm-hmm. So I could watch a Protestant video, and because it made me feel good, like, oh, this is actually good stuff. But then now, as I understand the doctrines, it's harder to watch a Protestant video without my mind clicking constantly, like, wait, we don't believe that, and we don't believe that. Right. But Catholic ones, I can go a stretch of watching a Catholic sermon without my mind, saying, wait a second. We
definitely have a lot more in common.
Yeah.
Apostolic authority, valid sacraments, slightly different teachings, but the same teacher.
And to be honest with you, because the Orthodox population in the United States is so small, I really hope that the Catholics can be the shining light in the U.S. Because I don't, just based on the population size, the Orthodox is probably only going to have a small role. Even if 1 million people convert to Orthodoxy tomorrow, still that's going to pale in comparison. So I definitely keep tabs on what's going on in the Catholic Church. And I do have a forum too, and most of the Christians on the forum are Catholics. So.
Oh, interesting. I noticed there's a couple of different subsections there. This is Roosh at rooshv.com?
It's, from rooshv.com. You can click on the link and it goes to rooshvforum.com.
Okay, great. Yeah. A lot of people And I've read it. I just read something about you this morning from our good friends at The Guardian, that bastion of independent journalism and truth. Basically saying that your conversion to Christianity, or your return to the faith of your childhood, was as a result of you eating magic mushrooms.
So about 2 to 3 weeks after I started to pray, I took that drug. And the entire experience was basically affirming the path. Now, usually this drug, it kind of tells you it confirms what you already believe in. So when I took the mushrooms, I could see the world for, how it is. It confirmed to me that I'm, in terms of the God path, I'm on the right path. But I turned to God before that. So that was a lie. I didn't take a drug and then believe in God after that. I started the path before that. And yeah, that drug did give a turbo boost at the time. But now I kind of wish I did not take it, in the sense of, a lot of people take psychedelic drugs and they kind of can go down the wrong road. They can go down this pantheistic road, occult type of road. Yeah. So, I took it once, had the experience. I'm glad it didn't damage me. And that was it. I don't, one thing I know is that if you go to a monastery, an Orthodox monastery, the monks are not in the back taking drugs. They're not taking ayahuasca.
Yeah.
So I don't want to, I dabbled in it once. That was enough. I have the information that I need. So now it's just about the hard work, day by day work of prayer and reading scripture and building your faith. But yeah, some people will be tempted by it. Let me just take a drug and then belief will be installed into me.
Yeah.
But that's not why I took it. But I did take it, and I'm thankful it did not hurt me. It did not hurt my path.
I've interviewed several exorcists and people who work on exorcism teams, and that kind of drug ingestion is very often a pathway to the demonic. It's sort of a portal. So it sounds like you dodged a bullet there. And as you say, it was sort of a confirmatory experience that you can kind of just let go and move forward. Mm-hmm. Roosh, go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say, a lot of the faith for me is not the miracles. You're in the church and sometimes you feel God and tears start to come down, and it feels great. But really, I'm finding what builds the faith is when things are dry, when you don't want to read the Bible and you don't want to pray because you just ate a big meal and you just want to go to bed. But I'm learning that the faith building is doing it when you don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. But it's when you have to strive, when you have to work. But when it's given to you, unfortunately, if it's given to you too easily, you take things for granted. I think this is why God, hides, because if it has to be in this way, because if he was doing a miracle for you every day, you would soon take him for granted totally.
100%.
So he makes you look for him. He, makes you work harder and harder. And then you look back a year like, wow, my faith has really grown a lot.
Isn't that let me start that sentence again. Isn't it an analog to working out at the gym? You'll develop stronger, bigger muscles and better tone to the degree to which it's uncomfortable. It hurts. You have to do it, sometimes in the face of your emotional desire to just relax and veg. It's that striving. It's that kind of overcoming the self. That's where the real growth begins. I'm sure you've tied those two worlds together.
If it feels good, you probably shouldn't do it.
Now there's a multi-million-dollar T-shirt sales idea. If it feels good, don't do it. Nike was wrong. Did you ever dream back in your red pill heyday when you're living la vida loca and you're traveling the world and you've got beautiful women at your right and your left? Did you ever dream that saying no to all of it and embracing what you just said, the fact that it's the uncomfortableness, it's the dryness, it's the path to happiness? It's just, you ever dream that you would be feeling this way and living as you are now?
I thought that once I got too old to pick up the European babes, I would go to Southeast Asia to sleep with the prostitutes. That's what I really thought. I thought I have to keep the sex going. Yeah. I thought that I can't stop it because I'm a man. It's healthy for a man to want to sleep around. And if I don't find a wife, I don't know how I expected to find one based on the activities I was doing. But if I don't find a wife, I'm going to go to Southeast Asia and pay money to sleep with these women. That's what I really thought. I thought that was going to be, I was going to be one of those fat expats.
Right.
And I honestly never thought that, okay, once I'm done having fun, I'll turn to God. Never. I didn't expect this. I mean, it came out of nowhere. I was surprised totally. But, when God knocks on your door, you open it. So, I wonder if some people in the same situation as me, if they have told him, no, I'm going to continue. And I think so. I think some people, when given the option, when the gift of faith is before them, they say, no, I'm still going to live by my own ways. And I look around the landscape we have now, and it seems like a lot of people believe in themselves. I guess that's a motto, to build confidence. Everyone is confident of themselves and their life goals and their life plan. I am right now not confident at all of anything I'm doing except my worship of God. That's it. That's the only thing I can tell you. I am confident. But based on my previous history, I'm an idiot. I am a total idiot. So I need to be sure if anything I'm doing now is not going to harm me like I harm myself. But unfortunately, I see a lot of people that are overconfident in their secular type of lifestyles.
Well, you're the last person to be thought to say that you're deliberately saying, I don't trust myself. Is it like you're sort of rejecting your own discernment abilities because your filter was so broken for so many years? That's a lot of humility in that statement.
I've been wrong constantly. I've been wrong so badly that I may have affected the salvation of other men. But I didn't know that's what I was doing, but that's how it was. So how can I now a lot of men, they send me an email asking me for advice. I'm like, in the past, I didn't know what I was talking about, but I was very eager. Yeah, I can give them advice because it feels good. They're looking up to me. But now I'm like, have you talked to a priest about this? But they don't want that. They want the one-line email that solves all of their life problems. But now I just don't feel, unless you have a question that I really know what the answer is, I don't like to give advice. I don't want to guide anyone. I just want to share my story, to testify. But if God has that role for me to help, I'll do it. But I'm not as eager to do it as I was. Part of me wants to go in a cave and become some kind of, bearded hermit and stay there and worship God. But I think his role for me, maybe it's, talking to you now, maybe to tell other people, hey, if you do what I did, you're going to hit a dead end.
Did you ever feel like you're damaged goods as far as being a future husband? Did you ever think, maybe I'm too broken? I can't do it. Too many regrets, too much broken equipment.
You would think that, but God's healing power is something else. I mean, God can change you totally change you. I remember in the past, I would have a coffee habit. I would drink 1 cup of coffee every day. I tried to quit that coffee habit so many times using my own willpower, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I would only quit for maybe a month or two, and then I would start back up again.
Yep.
But when I started to pray, when I accepted God, I stopped basically all those bodily sins I was doing, the pornography, masturbation, the fornication, gone overnight. I couldn't even quit coffee. How did I do this? I didn't do it on my own. So if God was allowed me to do that, I think he could repair me enough in case he sends a woman to me. But with God, anything is possible. That's why men are trying to figure it out on their own. They don't want to pray. They don't want to submit themselves. And I'm thinking, man, do they have any understanding how God can change their lives totally? Instead of going online and seeing, Look at my 6-week bodily transformation. I lost some weight. Do you know the transformation God can do to you? And, and I don't know if I actually deserve it, what he has done to me, because I've done so many bad things in the past, but I accept it totally.
At what point did you decide that coffee was one of those things you wanted to give up? Was that to sort of strengthen your will another degree?
Coffee, the problem is I don't want to be physically dependent on anything except for God. I don't want to wake up and look forward to drinking that coffee instead of looking forward to reading the Bible. So one concession I made is decaffeinated coffee. So first I pray, then I read the Bible, then I can have a decaffeinated coffee. So that's the compromise. But alcohol too. I quit alcohol totally.
Yeah, I did too.
And that was a little bit easier to do since alcohol was linked to going out, to dating. So since I don't go out to parties and date, it wasn't hard. But so many things he allowed me to stop. And on my own, though, everything is such a trial. It's so difficult. I need to orchestrate these self-improvement schemes. But if you want to serve God's will, he really helps you. And that's what I'm learning.
That concept of enough is very important, isn't it? His grace is enough. St. Paul, 3 times, Lord, take away this thorn of my flesh. If the great St. Paul can ask for something 3 times and the Lord says, no, Paul, my grace is enough. That's a good lesson for us. Here's a special effect for people who are not watching by YouTube. That was my one indulgence of coffee. But you've got me thinking, because I quit drinking last year. A very good decision. I thought I'd miss it a lot more than I do. And there's just so many motivations that a lot of people, when I did a video called Why I Quit Drinking, and I was flooded with private emails. Patrick, I did the same thing, or you've inspired me to think about this, just from a money-wasting point of view, stupid things you think and do when you're under the influence. I'm not a Baptist. I'm not opposed to drinking. I like mixing drinks for people, but we have one life to live, and the life that we're living is it's full of brevity, and it's fragile. And we really should be digging in to be the saints that God is forming us to be. And it's if it was easy, everybody would be saints.
I was just reading the book of Matthew, and one line I encountered, Jesus said, "Be perfect like my Father in heaven is perfect."
Yep.
And I'm thinking, well, am I being perfect by making these little compromises to get some pleasure out of the world? But in terms of alcohol, one thing I noticed is that when I would drink alcohol, I couldn't control my thoughts. It was just gone. I had, lustful thoughts were flooding in. It's like a dam broke. So I was like, no way, I can't, I cannot handle that. So, but maybe with you, it's different. You can have a couple drinks of wine and you're fine. So every man is different. He has to find out himself. This is why I don't tell you not to drink coffee, not to drink alcohol, or not to do that. I think every man is different. And, his faith is like me. If how low I was, I may have to do more on the surface to kind of heal myself from the damage that I did for such a long time.
Yeah. Has it taken a while to you're coming to chastity and to really return to Christ is relatively new compared to the years that you spent doing what you did. I would imagine that there would be a lot of lingering regrets. Like, did I make some girl pregnant over the years, and did she have an abortion? Am I an abortive father that I'll never learn about in this life?
One thing for me, I lucked out on that. I never, as far as I know, I've never impregnated a woman, never went through a abortion type of deal. Is it possible that a woman had been impregnated by me and got an abortion without telling me? Yes, it is. But as far as I know, that has not happened. I've escaped a lot of the downsides that I've seen other men have. But yeah, I look back, it's sometimes I'm just having a walk and I remember a memory of how low I was, how dumb I was. I'm like, oh, I did that too. So it's basically, I have a reel in my head of, just the nonstop sins that I did, and I don't let those sins, those memories, put me into despair. But it just serves as a reminder to me that you were in bad shape. And now look, you don't have to do that anymore. And you don't feel like you're missing out. You don't feel like you are losing out.
Right.
But in the past, if I had a Friday night that was bad, I thought my life was really stinky. Let's say, oh, I had a bad Friday night. That sucks.
Might as well just
But
go
now
back
on
to
Friday
the mud
night,
pit.
I don't do anything.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. All bets are off. Right?
Yes.
Well, you're positioned to be an unusually powerful advocate for why chastity is the avenue to happiness and why promiscuity is a built-in dead end. I asked you off the air if you're working on something, if you've got something in the creative pipeline. You're working on a memoir of some kind?
Yeah, so I gave a tour last year where I told my story throughout the USA. It was a 5-month trip, and I did speaking events each week, and I saw the countrysides and the parks and the cities, how the cities are getting worse and worse. So I'm writing a memoir about that experience. So while it's a travel memoir in the sense of what I've seen, it's also a spiritual one too, how my faith grew while still in the world. I mean, a lot of us don't have the privilege of going off to, say, the mountain in the monastery and just praying all day.
Yeah.
A lot of us have to work, and we have families. We live in the city. I'm in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. now. So, one challenge I think for us is how can we grow our faith when everything around us is trying to pull us away from it. And that's tough. And I think you've probably seen in your life where people, they succumb to the temptations. They succumb to the world. And if I can provide some guidance on, maybe how I can maintain the faith and other than staying home all day because of the pandemic,
right,
then that would be, I think, a pretty good help. But what I'm going to do is focus on what I've learned and focus on, hey, I was wrong about this and that. I have to be a little bit careful about, okay, I have great faith and I'm going to teach you. I don't want to teach. And I think one good thing that the Orthodox Church teaches is that you really shouldn't teach for a long, long time. So, but when the faith is so small and people are starving for a little bit of spiritual guidance, it's going to be hard to know where the line is.
When you return to rooshv.com, and you say you go into the forums, how has the reaction been to people who looked up to you as a PUA guru, and now you're an out of the closet Christian chastity advocate? Do you get pushback, or has it also been an occasion of grace for them to rethink what they're doing?
I would say for the men who were approaching the faith, it was something that probably helped them, but a lot of men aren't. I would say at least half of the men who followed me are still, I need to travel to the country where the hottest girls are and sleep with them. They became very angry. I remember one comment said that my turn to faith means that I have brain cancer, because it's just crazy. Or a lot of men said, I'm doing this to grift. I'm trying to earn more money in this way. A lot of men said, oh, because he's getting old, his sex drive is lower. A lot of people online say it's fake, that this is all an act.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, I get a lot of hate from this, and I still do. And, I deserve it because of how I lived. So I just let them hate, but I know what is true, but it's never going to stop. I can tell you the hate from people, whether from the left or from the manosphere, is never going to end. And I'm going to have to deal with these comments basically every day.
Yeah, I can see you. This is another thing that is thrown at you. I've seen this online, that your rebranding as a conservative Christian chastity guy is just one more way for you to be a troll. So now, I mean, in a culture where everything is libertine, everything is far left by default, everything's run by SJWs, and it's George Soros clown world, for you to adopt this is your equivalent of punk, right? That it's not really sincere. I'm sure you've heard that too.
People who, and I hear that still. People who don't have God in their lives cannot possibly believe someone can change overnight. It's just because it hasn't happened to them. Their only change is getting drunk, let's say, but to change overnight, that's impossible. You can't do that, but of course, that's always coming from non-Christian people. But people who believe in Christ, many of them say, "Hey, Roosh, the same thing happened to me." So then I thought I was a special case. No, in fact, my story for a lot of men who took the same path as me is exceedingly common, very common. And, I think through the story I told, maybe it happened to you too, in the sense of how God entered your life. But, you can't make everyone happy. You can't convince everyone. I mean, I'm not trying. But as long as the people who are getting something spiritually profitable from my new work gets it, hey, even if it's just a couple of people, that's fine too. Because in the past, it was all about getting the views and the clicks.
Yeah.
Getting the money. Well, the money is gone because most of my income was coming from the game books, so that's basically done. So what is left? Well, all that's left is living in accordance with God's commandments and spreading the good word. That is basically it. I mean, what else do I have to live for?
There are some young men who've stuck with this conversation because they Googled you and they don't know who I am. And they're a little surprised at your story because this might be the first time they've encountered what happened to you. What would you say to them if they're wondering if there's a way out of this tunnel of the constant hamster wheel of girl after girl after girl?
The problem that I'm finding is that men say, yeah, Roosh, I get it. Not sleeping around is good, but the girls do it. But the girls want it. The girls want the sex. So what I'm finding is that you have a lot of men who are following Eve. So Eve has already eaten from all the trees of the knowledge of good and evil. She's gorged herself on the apples. And now the men see only her and like, well, I want that companionship. I want that intimacy. But if you're following Eve, you're following Satan too. You should never follow her. God didn't intend for the man to follow a woman who has fallen hard, and Adam did, and we have to pay that price, right? So I think just because she's doing it, just because she's on Tinder, doesn't mean you should get on Tinder. Just because she's getting drunk and wants to sleep around doesn't mean that you should do it too. And that's easier said than done, because when I faced that option, I didn't do that. I was like, yeah, Eve, I'll eat from the tree too. And what did that get me? What did that get me? And so that's the problem. All the men ask me, well, where are the good girls? Well, if you keep sleeping with the bad ones, then there won't be any good ones anyway.
Could you say
so? Unfortunately, some responsibility is on us too.
And if you're not chaste, if you're not abstaining from all that behavior, you're continually drinking Kool-Aid and you're ruining your taste for fine wine. You're literally not able to discern good from bad, right? Jesus says, you mentioned the Gospel of Matthew, blessed are the pure of hearts, for they shall see God. Well, what's the corollary? If you're unchaste, you're not going to see God. Your ability to see goodness has been warped by your own worship of the creation instead of the Creator. So, well, back to the question about where do you find these good girls after you take some time, after you disconnect from the behavior and repent and open yourself to the grace of God. Church circles, is there what would you recommend for someone who's done with the promiscuous lifestyle, who does want to settle down, find a good woman and be willing to die for her?
A lot of men want the steps. Step 1, 2, 3, go here, go there, go to church, on and on. But where's the faith in God? Where's the faith in God to give you the woman that he thinks is necessary for your salvation? Me, I believe that if I follow God as close as I can, I don't have to worry about where to go and what to do. That I just have to follow him, have faith in him, and if God deems it right, he will send me a woman as seemingly as from thin air. Now, I know that's not how it really happens. You have to be a part of a community. But I think let's not focus on anything except for God. The problem is if guys are asking that, they don't put God number one. I mean, I see it. Yeah, they have God in their lives, but they're scared of being alone. They're scared of not meeting a woman. They still have put a woman number one. This is the most common thing. And just like I did, I mean, I didn't even have God, but they put a woman number one. They have to rearrange their lives totally to get the woman. Some of them will shop for a church based on how many good-looking girls are at that church. Not unlike shopping for a club, the club with the hottest girls.
It's insidious, isn't it?
So really, I can tell you, the stronger your faith in God is, the less you feel like you need to find a woman. If you have God in your life, you get love from Him. But see, if a guy is hearing this right now and said that's impossible, then I would question, is he putting God first? If you put God number one, I think, I'm still early in my walk, but I would think that the problem would solve itself. But we have to understand this is an extraordinarily evil time. I mean, women are corrupted from such a young age. And, one thing, they have this new site you may have heard of called OnlyFans. And it's a site where a woman can become a prostitute with a click of a button, go and sell her body. And then, for a price every month. So this is like Tinder, but 10 times worse. Right. And a huge percentage of girls 18 to 25 are going to try this out. What do you do about that? What do you do if by the time a woman is 30, 99.9% of them has fallen badly? I don't know. I don't have the answer there. But, we have to, in such a time, to think that, okay, if I go to church a couple times a month and I be nice to the old grannies, that I'm going to get a beautiful girl and have a happy family. I mean, our expectations have to be aligned with the reality that we face. This is a very difficult time. I mean, this is so much evil. I just looking at it, it's like, man, this is bad. This is bad how corrupted the society is. So, I know the advice I have is not good enough. I know men don't want to hear that. But the last thing I can say about that is that if you're not close to God enough, you're not going to have the eyes to know what a good woman is. Be a little bit careful. Because if your faith is weak, you can get tricked by a girl pretending to have faith very easily, very easily. Some men have been married a woman who I could see from the get-go, she has some problems. She is not a good person, let's say, but he's going to marry her. So I think being able to see clearly the eyes that God gives you is very important. You want to be at the point where you can feel the faith of a girl.
Yep.
But if not, if your faith is weak and you're just shopping around looking for a pretty face, you're going to get burned. You are going to get burned. And you're probably going to allow her to cause you to do something that you don't want to do.
Yep. Well, Roosh, I know your story has a lot of chapters, and we're all midway. We're in the middle of things. I want to thank you for your candor today, and I know I'm sure you have a lot of folks that want your attention. Plus, you're writing this memoir. I do hope to keep in touch. Love to talk about that memoir when it's at the starting line.
Yeah, sure. I would love to come back on again.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. God bless you, Roosh.
Great. Thank you very much.
This is the Patrick Coffin Show. Be a saint. What else is there?